Good morning, everyone. Hope you're having a fantastic day. We're here bright and early in 2025 to discuss how to build a poker bankroll. We have a simple guide for you today that will hopefully help you take your poker game to the next level, because if you do not diligently, logically, etc., build a bankroll with a general plan in place, you're kind of just going to flounder around. It's very important to make sure that if you actually care about getting good at poker and actually succeeding at poker, that you have strategies in place to ensure you are able to consistently move up. I've heard some people in the small stakes games say, I'm happy winning at the small stakes where I can win all the time. You have to realize if you're winning almost nothing all the time, you're going to end up with almost nothing. My goal as a poker teacher here for you today is to teach you how to make substantial amounts of money from poker. Not trying to teach you how to pass time or goof off with your friends or turn $100 into $110. Not trying to teach you to make $10 a day. We are trying to do far better than that. So let's get right to it. Welcome to all of you who are here. I'm sure some people are going to be trickling in. How do you turn $0 into a poker bankroll? Well, first things first, you have to find a game you can beat. You have to play it a lot, and you have to keep a proper bankroll. I know, I sound like a broken record saying this here on YouTube, but it's because people don't listen. People do not want to find a game they can beat. They want to play whatever game's available, and they want to play a game that is too tough for them. They want to challenge themselves. They don't want to sit there and be content grinding out the money. Next, you have to play it a lot. What is a lot? We're going to talk about that. A lot of people think that playing 3 sessions a week is a lot, but they don't realize their 4-hour sessions of live poker result in them playing, 500 hands a week, maybe? 500 hands a week is not a lot of poker. Hate to break it to you. And finally, you have to keep a proper bankroll in order to consistently grow your bankroll. A lot of people think they should be taking shots or gambling. And look, if you gamble, you will get rich sometimes. You will turn a little bit of money into a lot of money sometimes, but most of the time, you'll turn your money into zero. And I'm not trying to teach you how to turn your money into a lot of money 1 in 100 times. I'm not trying to make you successful 1 in 100 times. I'm trying to make you successful 99 out of 100 times. So, first things first, how do you find a game you can beat? Well, you really only have 2 good options. You can either find really bad players to play against. Find really bad players to play against. Goodness, I can't type. It's too early. Find really bad players to play against, because then even if you're not that good at poker, you're going to have a pretty big edge, or get really good at poker. There are actually a lot of live cash game players today who make a bunch of money at poker by not being all that good at poker. What they've done, though, is they've curated games with some really bad players, to the point that even if they are, let's say, the 50,000th best poker player in the world, they're playing against the millionth best poker player in the world, and they're going to crush them. Kind of the opposite of what ends up happening at the highest stakes tournaments, where it's all the best players in the world, and then number 300, right? Number 300 is going to lose to number 2, but, not a whole lot. There's this big problem in live cash games, especially in Vegas and LA and whatnot today, where there are not very many soft public cash games, right? And that results in a lot of very good poker players who don't have developed, or who have not developed networking skills, not being able to make a whole lot of money from poker, even though they're very good at poker. So realize you may have to work on networking skills if you want to be a live cash game player in 2025. This was not the case in 2004 when I first started playing poker a long time ago, because then all the games were public for the most part. They were all public for the most part, and you could just sit down and play with bad players all the time. That's not the case today. You actually do have to work to get in good cash games. And that's not a game a lot of people like to play. So that's option 1. Find really bad players to play against. Of course, if you're playing 1-2 no limit hold'em at your local casino, everyone's going to be bad, because if they were good, they would have moved up already. And you should have a pretty good edge if you're anywhere near decent at poker. Next, you can get really good at poker. This is what I think this is the easiest thing for a lot of people who are willing to sit down and study. this is what they do. This is what I did. This is what a lot of other really good people do. They get really good at poker. They study a ton away from the table to the point that they're very good at poker. And no matter what game they sit in, they're basically never going to be a big loser. And they're usually going to be a tiny loser or a small winner or a medium winner or a big winner, depending on how bad their opponents are on that particular day. And this is the thing that I think you generally have the most control over. Because assuming you're playing a public game, which most tournaments today are public, and a lot of small and medium stakes games are public as well, if you're just way better at poker than everybody else, you can sit in pretty much any game and be perfectly fine. So these are your two options. Hate to break it to you. You have no other options. Either play against really bad players or get really good at poker. And ideally, you get really good at poker and you play against really bad players. This is what I used to do all day, every day. I would sit at Bellagio and play 5, 10, and 10-20 no-limit hold'em. I was much better at poker than my opponents, and my opponents were not very good at poker. And that resulted in me having a very big win rate while I was just sitting there grinding all day, every day. And back then, I really only cared about making money, so I did play about 70 hours a week for about a year. And you may say, why didn't you keep doing it? Because honestly, I didn't love it. But at that point in my career, I really needed to turn some money into a decent chunk of money. And I made like $350K that year grinding cash games, where my biggest downswing was like $30K. Not even that much when you're thinking about winning 300 something K or 400 something K, right? Now, is that possible today? If you can find a good game that runs all the time, I don't think the games are nearly as soft as they used to be. I don't think they run all the time anymore. That said, if you work hard, you can find games to play even today where you can win 10 big blinds per hour or more at live poker. And if you just put your butt in the chair, you will grind it up. You do need to keep track of your results. You have to keep track of your results. The most important things to keep track of are how much you're winning per hand or hour or some other metric that is kind of a consistent metric based on what you're doing. Like how much you're winning per hour in live poker is ideal. How much you're winning per hand online is ideal if you're using Hold'em Manager or Poker Tracker to track your results. You also want to keep track ideally of when you're playing. You may find some times are way better than others. For example, nights and weekends in live poker are usually way softer than the middle of the day on Tuesday, because the degens are out on the nights and weekends, and that results in the games being quite soft. You may find that the super late shift is ideal. Maybe you want to show up at the casino at midnight and play until the game breaks, 7, 8, 9 a.m., whenever it is. And you'll find that might be very, very beneficial for you too. You may find there's a specific set of hours, like let's say 2 a.m. till 7 a.m. or 4 a.m. until 8 a.m., whatever, where the games are super duper soft. Maybe you only want to play then. What a lot of players used to do wrong in the Bellagio games I was referring to a second ago, the good players, I mean, is they would play Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and that's it. You may say, why didn't they play on the weekends? Because they were busy partying. They were busy partying on all the weekends. They would party Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then they would need some rest on Monday, and then they'd come back ready to go on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. But they didn't realize they were playing on the toughest days, because, look, there were probably only 10 regular good players in these games back then, and if 8 of them are doing the exact same thing, that's going to result in Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and Monday being super soft, mainly Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and then Thursday, Friday, or Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday being very tough. So if I ever took an off day, it was on one of those days, because those are when the game should be toughest, right? So make sure you keep track of your results, because you may find that some you will find that some times are way softer than others. Literally, the ones I just told you is going to be consistent for pretty much everywhere. You also want to keep track of, ideally, who is really, really bad and when they play. I had written down, back in the day, a rough schedule of when I knew the absolute worst players would play. So I'd make a point to try to play with them. You can also get friendly with the floor person and maybe give them some money. And if a really, really bad player comes in, they'll give you a call. Then you can get your butt up and you can go play poker when the really, really, really bad player is there. There used to be, just off the top of my head, there's this guy from Texas who would fly in sporadically to play 10-20, 25-50, whatever's running at Bellagio. And he would just randomly show up at like 11 p.m. with a bunch of money. And he would lose it all every single time. At least every time I was there, he did. And I would get a call at 11 p.m. Sometimes I would already be done for the day. I'd get my butt up and I'd go back up there because the game would be soft then, right? Overly soft then. So you can do things like that to make sure you're playing in a game that is soft. But essentially, you want to be really good at poker and you want to find bad players to play against. Do these two things, you'll win. A lot of people do the opposite. They play any game against anyone. They don't do step one, and they don't study poker. They're not good. If you're not good and you play against good people, you're going to lose. Kind of common sense, right? Let's see what you all are saying in the chat. Sus says, you appreciate my content. Glad to hear it. How much hands are a good medium to make a decision on how good you play? Basically, you're saying how big of a sample do you need to know if you're winning? I mean, look, in live poker, if you're playing a lot, 3 months or 6 months is probably fine. It's not actually that many hands, but in live poker, ideally, you have a pretty big win rate, in the small stakes games at least. Online, if you play 100,000 hands, you can run bad over 100,000 hands, but you know, that's going to give you some idea of how well you're doing. That may seem like a ton of hands to some people, by the way, but if you're like playing a lot of tables online, you can get through 100,000 hands in like a month, no problem. I mean, back when I used to grind online cash games, I would play a bunch of tables, like 16 at a time, and you can probably do, I don't know, 8,000 or 10,000 hands a day if you're like grinding hard. But again, I know most people don't grind hard. Most people don't play a ton of tables like I do. Therefore, maybe it'll take you 2 months or 3 months or 4 months or whatever. But a lot of people think I'm going to sit there and I'm going to play for a week and see how it goes. And I hate to break it to you, it's not a lot. But what happens to a lot of people is they sit down with, let's say, $200 and they want to play a $20 buy-in game or a $25 buy-in game, and they have 8 buy-ins. I mean, and they go on a downswing for 8 buy-ins and think they're awful. And to be fair, maybe they are. But you're going to go on downswings like that. If you've watched me stream my last 2 sessions on Coin Poker, you can watch them on YouTube. Click on I think it's like the live tab. Should be the last few live things I've done here. First session, I lost 7 buy-ins. I got crushed. I lost literally every pot. And a lot of them were just very set up situations. In the second session, I won 10 buy-ins. That's normal. That's normal, okay? If you're playing 4 tables online against good battling opponents, and you're battling too, as you should be, you're going to go on downswings, and that's just normal. And you will find that sometimes 5 days in a row or 5 sessions in a row, you lose 7 buy-ins or 10 buy-ins or whatever. That's just going to happen. Get used to it. In live poker, I see that a lot of people get really distraught when they lose 1 buy-in or 2 buy-ins. They hate getting stacked. They hate having to reach into their pocket and get out more money. But that's crazy. Get used to it. Hey, here we have Bogger. You played 48 hours of 1-3. Which is, what, 4 real days of play. You played 4 real days, and you're down 5 buy-ins, $1,600, assuming you're buying in for $300 a pop. Should this be an expected downswing? Absolutely. 500 buy-ins, 5 big blinds, is very, very normal over the course of 4 days-ish worth of play. It's going to happen all the time. That said, maybe you're bad. The thing is short-term results are indicative of something, right? Any result is indicative of something. For example, if you roll a die and you tell me it's weighted a little bit on one side, and I roll a 5, odds are it's the 5 that it is weighted towards, right? Maybe not, though. Could just be random. Or maybe, you get that a tiny, tiny bit more or tiny, tiny bit less than 1/6 of the time. It's still going to come up sometimes. If you're playing a poker session, odds are if you're losing, you're probably a losing player. But there's a ton of variance, right? 48 hours is like nothing. It's like literally nothing. Literally nothing. That said, as your edge is bigger, you'll have downswings far less often. Just in general, because your edge is bigger. You struggle after the bubble. Well, realize when you get in the money in a tournament after the bubble, there's going to be a lot of flipping because there's going to be a lot of short stacks, and sometimes you're going to run poorly. You want to turn 600 into 5,000. Find a game you can beat, play a lot, keep proper bankroll. You just turned 18. You made $2,300 in 10 hours at 2-2. Okay, that's good. Ship it. You're probably running hot. Do I ever lose 300 big blinds in a week? Well, I never really played 1-2 no limit hold'em. I literally just told you I had a 700 big blind downswing over the course of a 4-hour session or 3-hour session, whatever it was, a few weeks ago. It's streamed. You can watch it. That's going to happen in live poker too. Then you see the next 2 weeks, I won 1,000 big blinds in the same rough 3-hour time period. Get used to it. It is normal. Poker apps are filled with really bad players, says Louis Philippe. Louis Philippe runs our poker coaching study sessions. Make sure you check it out. We have go to pokercoaching.com, click in the community tab, get in our Discord, study all the time. That will ensure you're pretty good at poker. Poker apps are filled with really bad players. Yes, they are. All sorts of private games are filled with really bad players. Some of these apps, there are various concerns. Maybe you don't get paid. Maybe you're working with an agent who also may not pay you. Anytime there's middlemen, that's trouble. That said, if you're a good professional player, you may realize that you're going to win X amount of money on the site and you're going to get paid X percentage of the time. So say you're going to get paid 75% of the time. That means your win rate is effectively 0.75 or whatever it actually seems to be. Maybe you get cheated. Maybe the site's crooked. Who knows? All this needs to be accounted for. Sometimes it makes the game negative, especially if you have to put your money in and buy in, because then they can just rob you, right? That said, be smart. Take care of yourself. Protect yourself before you wreck yourself. 14 players like this stream. Good. Glad to hear it. Click the like button. Click the subscribe button. How do you know if your skill level is increasing enough to move up in stakes? If you're crushing your current game and you're bankrolled for the next higher game, move up and see how it goes. You still play online. I literally just... have you not listened to what I'm saying? Check out pokercoaching.com/freeroll. There's a $2,000 free roll each week and get good rake back, good deposit bonus, etc., etc., etc. Do you recommend return on investment as a good indicator? So the problem with tournaments is you need a bunch of tournaments played to give you a reasonable idea of what your actual return on investment is. So yeah, that's the only real metric that matters so much, or that and big blind per 100 if you're playing online, or EV big blind per 100. But RI is usually the best, because then you can know over the long term if you're actually winning or losing. Yeah, get a bigger stack before the bubble if you don't like having no chips when you get in the money. What should you study? Go to pokercoaching.com and study either the tournament or the cash game masterclass. You moved into New York State. Check out pokercoaching.com/freeroll. Get on Coin Poker, get in there, and you'll be good to go. What is a standard negative fluctuation for a regular tournament player with 30% ROI? We're going to get to that. And long story short, I'll spoil it for you. The answer is, it depends on how many players are in the field. It depends on how top-heavy the tournament is. Because as there's more players in the field, you're going to have bigger downswings. You're going to win a 2,000-player tournament way less often than a 45-player tournament. And that's going to result in you having way bigger downswings in general. All right. Find a game you can beat, play it a lot, keep a bankroll. Keep a proper bankroll. This is how you find a game you can beat. Next. Well, I guess I discussed this. Play when the games are soft. This is how you find a game you can beat. Game and table selection is very important. When you go into the casino, assuming you're playing live poker or online, get on the waiting list for various stakes. Maybe you want to play, let's say, 2-5 no limit, but get on the waiting list for 1-3 or 1-2 or whatever, and 5-10. If the 5-10 seat opens up, assuming you're properly bankrolled for 2-5, you can effectively take a quick shot at 5-10, observe the game, see if it's super soft. If it's super soft, play. Because you don't need much of a bankroll if you're crushing your opponents, because the game's super duper soft. If the game's not super soft, pack it up and wait. Be done. Quit. It's okay. It's okay to take a seat, play in orbit, and then leave if you don't like it. By the way, a lot of people, they have a lot of, let's call them ego issues or pride issues pertaining to like live poker. They don't like the idea of admitting they're not good enough with their actions, but get over all of that. Don't worry about any of that. Your goal is to make money, period. Get over looking bad, dumb, silly, whatever. If you play with strong players, your edge will be low, even if you're excellent at poker. This is what happens in the highest stakes tournaments. That said, you're buying in for a lot of money, so even if you have a small edge, you'll still be able to make a decent amount. But you're not going to win a ton of money if your edge is low against your opponents in any scenario. Play cash games when the weakest players are playing, like I said, figure out when that is. And you're going to find that also in tournaments. Main events, or events that carry more prestige than normal, are usually going to be way softer than random sporadic tournaments. In your local casino, they may have a monthly tournament, whatever they want to call it, where they have a guaranteed prize pool that's bigger than normal, or maybe the buy-in's bigger than normal, or maybe they add seats to it, to cash game players who play a lot of rake or whatever. These tournaments are going to be way softer than your normal tournament. Now, they're usually going to have more players, and the buy-in's going to be a little bit bigger, but assuming it's not exorbitantly big, it's not way bigger, and assuming you have a nice edge, it's going to be a pretty good game. The Poker Coaching Masterclass costs money. Yes, indeed. You have no money. Look, if you have no money, if you have no money, you really only have two options at poker. You can either, number one, play free roll tournaments. Check out pokercoaching.com/freeroll. I'm trying to provide all the tools you could possibly need to get a hold of some money here. You got to get hold of some money. Number two, you can get a job. A lot of people who want to play poker for a living don't want to get a job. Whenever I was starting to play poker, I was working two jobs. I was working a job at an airport and a job at a comic book store, making $10 per hour at each of those. $10 per hour, working on average 8 hours per day, 7 days a week, because I didn't take off days. You do math. $80 a day. I was happy to make $80 a day, $560 every week, $2,000 a month. Now, back then, I was very lucky. I did not have many expenses. I was living with my parents, so I had no rent. I just had a cheap car payment and a cheap car insurance and a little bit of food here and there. And of that $2,000, I probably got to keep, I don't know, $1,500 to put to my bankroll every month because I had $500 worth of expenses. And I structured my jobs such that I could actually study poker a lot at them. Like at the airport, I made a point to work the graveyard shift where there wasn't a whole lot to do from, 2 a.m. till 5 a.m. So I would study poker. And that kind of let me make good use of my time, right? And if you can pocket $1,000 a month from a job while hopefully still finding a way to study poker, either on the side or whatever, then great. Do that for 6 months. You'll have $6,000. It's a real bankroll, right? I didn't have poker coaching when I first started, so what did I do? I studied books. Back then, there was not a whole lot of content on actually getting good at poker. There were a few books back in the day that were decent. I studied what I had. Fortunately for you, I've made your life really, 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 really easy by having this YouTube channel. Check out the Master the Fundamentals playlist, for example. There's a lot of great content there that's nice and curated and easy to go through, hopefully, for you. And there's a whole bunch of other content, right? You got it made easy today. Back then, we knew nothing. We knew nothing and we had nothing, but we did our best. Most tournaments are bounty tournaments and have lots of shoving. Well, you better get good at shoving and bounty calculation then, right? Oh, by the way, if you do sign up to pokercoaching.com, if you do not like it, or you do not learn from it, or whatever reason you want to give me, let me know within 30 days. I'll give you all your money back. If we do not help you get good at poker, we do not want or deserve your money. All right, what's next? Play a game you can beat a lot. You need to play a game you can beat a lot. If you make some amount of money per hand, you will make some amount of money per hand you're dealt in if you have an edge, assuming you can beat the rake. So, imagine every hand you play, you make 10 cents. Let's just pretend. Well, if you know every hand you play, you make 10 cents. That means every 10 hands you play, you make $1. Every 100 hands you play, you make $10. And every 1,000 hands you play, you make $100. Let's say you can play online and make play 500 hands per hour. That means you're going to make $100 every 2 hours. So $50 an hour, right? Simple as that. If you know your win rate is 10 cents per hand, you can play that amount of hands per hour, you'll make $50 an hour. So, put your butt in the chair and grind a lot. If you do not play, you do not extract the value. Now, you may find that as you play more hours, you get burnt out. Maybe your edge goes down. You may find that if you don't spend as much time studying, you play a little bit worse and your edge goes down. You may find if you play too many tables, your edge goes down. Your edge will go down as you play more tables, by the way, typically. Especially if you're playing a lot of tables. But essentially, if you do not play, you do not extract value. And if you do not extract value, your bankroll will not grow. As you all have said here already, I've played 48 hours and I'm down 5 buy-ins. What's going on? One session or 1 week or one tournament or whatever is not a lot. 48 hours of play is literally 4, in my opinion, real days worth of play. You will have downswings over the course of 4 days. Hate to break it to you. Recognize, though, days and weeks and time are not the right metric to measure poker results. You need to be measuring poker results in terms of hands played or tournaments played, ideally. Now, whenever you're playing live poker, you know roughly how many hands you're going to play per hour because you can't really play that many more or less than anybody else. So you can look at hours, dollars per hour in live poker. That's probably fine. But realize when you're playing online, if you play 1 table and I play 12 tables, I'm probably going to make 8-ish times as much money as you're making at the same stakes. Simply because I've mastered the skill of playing more tables at a time. So maybe that's a skill you need to learn. Also in live poker, I know I just said you can't really play that many more hands than any other table, but you actually can. Whenever I used to play, well, when I play live poker today, I play fast. Why do I play fast? I play fast because as you play more hands per hour, you make more money. This same principle applies to tournaments, by the way. In tournaments, you're going to make or lose some amount of money per hand you're dealt in. There are some periods of the tournament, especially in the beginning stages, where you really, really, really want to play hands and get a hold of chips. So don't be that slow player who takes their time in every decision, unless you think it's going to make you come up with a way better decision. Because if I get to play 35 hands per hour at my table, but every other table plays 20 hands per hour, I'm going to make almost twice as much equity in that stage of the tournament than other people. And that's really, really, really good for me. It's kind of cool that in poker, you can almost double your win rate simply by studying poker, getting good, and having more clearly automatic decisions. I have a recommendation for studying to playing ratio as a newer player. Imagine you wanted to become a brain surgeon. Let's just pretend. You want to be a brain surgeon. How much time should you spend studying brain surgery compared to doing brain surgery? Now, I realize that brain surgery is not quite the same as poker, but whenever you're playing poker, it's kind of like you're operating on your bankroll. You're operating on your bankroll, and for a lot of people, back when I was a kid, that was definitely the case. It's like it was everything I cared about. I cared about making that number go up. It was very important to me. If I did not think I was making money in the game, I did not play the game because I did not want to see the number go down. A lot of people don't care if their number goes down. I didn't like the number to go down. Now, look, the number will go down inevitably because that's part of the game. But I did not play in spots where I thought I was going to be heavily disadvantaged. I was not playing poker to play poker. I was playing poker to try to make money. Very different things, right? Fortunately for all of you, you can check out peakgto.com. That is our GTO solver that we are consistently working on, upgrading, et cetera, et cetera. Check it out. And we have a trainer tool where you can get in there and you can train against a perfect playing opponent. We also have the drills of the day where you can effectively go in there and play hands and get immediate feedback from myself and a bunch of other poker coaching coaches about common scenarios you're going to be in. It's almost like you get to play without risking your money. This was not something we had back in the day. Like the only way to actually get experience was to play. Today you can get experience by playing against the solver and seeing if you're blundering left and right. If you're blundering left and right, that's not going to be good. If you're playing well all the time, you're probably going to be pretty good. How can you improve your recreational player? Study a lot. I literally just told you. When's the Peak GTO app coming out? I don't know. I have a trial version on my phone. That said, it should work okay in the browser. We're definitely working on that, though, for sure. Okay. Next, you got to keep a proper bankroll. If you don't have any money, you cannot play, no matter how good you are. This is something a lot of poker players fail at. They recognize they need to play in a game they can beat. They make a point to play in a spot where they have an edge. They do a pretty good job at that because they're really good at poker. They find a game they can beat. They play it a lot. They do play the game a lot, yet they still lose. Or they're consistently out of action. Why is that? It's because They do not keep a proper bankroll. If you're out of money, you cannot play. If you cannot play, go back to this. If you cannot play, you cannot extract value, right? So you must keep a proper bankroll if you want to ensure you have lots of profitable opportunities to play. A lot of people don't like keeping a big bankroll. They think that they're kind of wasting their money, or they think that they are not using their money to their full potential. They think that every cent they have needs to be in play all the time. I hate to break it to you. Math says that is not the case. There's this idea of Kelly criterion, where you want to risk some amount of money based on the edge you have and the variance you expect to encounter in the game. And you probably want to keep something like half Kelly for poker tournaments. You can Google all that if you feel inclined. We're not going to get into that because this is a simple guide today. That said, I recommend keeping way more than the required amount that I'm about to show you in your bankroll, because poker is an excellent way to get rich slowly. Do not be in a rush to get a hold of money super duper fast. A lot of people think they have $600. They want to turn it into 5,000 tomorrow. I mean, maybe you can, but probably not. And instead, if you just take your time, grow your money slowly. If you have $600, play a game where you can make $3 an hour. If you make $3 an hour, let me get a calculator. Calculator. You need to make how much? $5,400 divided by 3. You can grind 1,800 hours, making only $3 an hour, and turn that 600 into 6,000. You wanted 5,000 only. You wanted 4,400. That's not right. Is that right? 1,400 hours. Let's say you play 40 hours per week. How many weeks is this? 36 weeks. If you play 2/3 of a year, 40 hours a week, which in my opinion isn't even all that much, you will turn your $600 into 5,000. Fortunately for you, as you turn that 600 into 1,200 and that 1,200 into 2,400, you'll go from making $3 an hour to maybe $6 an hour, to maybe $10 an hour, to maybe $15, to maybe $20 an hour. Once you start making $20 an hour, you'll get a hold of that 5,000 very quickly. He says, you feel like you could do something better with your time. Well, then go away. That said, whenever you're new to poker and you're starting playing poker, your goal is not to make money. Your goal is to get good at poker, because when you're new to poker, you have not found a game you can beat yet. You must study a ton to the point you can find a game you can beat. That's a lot of the struggle in poker, is finding the game you can beat. So, in the beginning, you're not going to make a lot of money. If you're not playing poker because you at least enjoy it some, I would tell you to do something else. Now, I know I said when I was young, I was playing poker to make money, but I also like playing games. Poker's not my favorite game, but it's a game, and I like games, so it'll do. And it is a game you can make a lot of money at, so it'll definitely do. If I can make tons of money playing other games, I'd probably play a different game, but that's not the option. So, I'm willing to get my games that not my super duper favorite in exchange for being able to make some money at it. As Louis Philippe says here, most people play video games for $0. It's actually worse. They pay to play the video game. They got to buy a video game system and they got to buy the game. So they pay to play. Here, I'm trying to teach you to get paid to play. So realize when you first start playing poker, you're probably not going to make all that much money. Back when I started playing, I was playing 25 cent, 50 cent limit hold'em, probably making $1 an hour, $2 or $3 an hour. I wasn't doing it to make money. I was doing it to develop my skills, right? You need to get good at poker. Something a lot of small stakes players do wrong, by the way, is they get okay at poker to the point that they can beat 5 cent, 10 cent online. And then they think, all right, I can beat this for $1 per hour per table, so I'm going to play 20 tables. Then they make $20 an hour, and they think they're crushing it. And they are doing pretty good. But they really don't develop their skills and get much better because they're not focusing on exploiting opponents. And when you're playing 20 tables, you're kind of autopiloting. You really don't want to be doing autopilot poker ever. And the only time you really want to be doing autopilot poker is when your autopilot's really good and you don't really care about getting all that much better at poker. You care about extracting value. But $20 an hour is not the kind of value I'm trying to teach you all to make. I'm trying to teach you all to make $100 an hour or more. Like real money, right? If you get to where you can make $100 per hour, you're going to be in pretty good shape because then you can play whatever, 5 hours per day and make, what? A lot of money. You do the math. So here are cash game requirements based on your win rate. So we have cash game requirement. Here's your win rate. Here's the bankroll needed, or at 1-2 no limit hold'em. So if you're winning at 3 big blinds per 100 hands, this is a very small online win rate, but not so bad at the highest stakes. You need about 10,000 big blinds. That's about 100 buy-ins, or at 1-2 no limit hold'em, about $20,000. That may sound like a lot. But it is what is required if you don't want to go broke all that often. Now, I'm going to preface this with saying, you're allowed to move down, and you should move down kind of aggressively if things go poorly, to the point that you may not need 100 buy-ins. You may only actually need 50 if you're willing to quickly move down, because if you move down to the point that you're playing half the stakes you take that 50 and say you lose down to 40, now you actually have 80 again. And presumably the smaller stakes game is going to be softer, right? So as you're more willing to move down, you can keep a smaller bankroll. If you have a job and you're consistently adding money to your bankroll, you don't actually need all the money on hand, right? Like you're not just going to lose 10,000 big blinds today, right? Hopefully you're not. You're not going to lose 10,000 big blinds over the course of like a week or a month. Like this is a big bankroll for you, right? But if you know you can replenish it with 1,000 big blinds every month, and you know you're going to do this for a year, well, it's like you have 12,000 big blinds coming to you from your job, from your disposable income, whatever that is, right? So this, though, these numbers presume you're not really looking to move down. It also presumes you're not really looking to add more money to your bankroll. This is it. This is all you got. So if this is all you have, you need to make sure you do not go broke. So what if you are a decent online winning player? Something like 7 big blinds per 100 hands. This is a reasonable online win rate. You need about 6,000 big blinds or 12,000 at 1-2 no limit hold'em. This is about the minimum I would recommend anyone keep for online poker where the games are going to be kind of tough. And you probably don't even have 7 big blinds edge. In a lot of games, you're going to have like almost no edge. You're going to be at this like 3 big blind per 100 range. In live poker, though, you can win at 20 big blinds per 100 hands. This would be roughly 7 big blinds per hour, give or take. Like I said back when I was playing a long time ago, I was winning at 10 or 12 big blinds per hour. So almost double this. But as you see here, you still need 25 buy-ins. And 1-2 no limit hold'em, that's $5,000. You should expect to go on $3,000 or $4,000 downswings some portion of the time if you're winning $14 per hour at 1-2 no limit hold'em. By the way, this presumes you're making that amount of money after all expenses, like rake and tips. A lot of people think, oh, I'm winning 20 big blinds per 100 hands. The problem is they tip out 30 big blinds or pay rake for 30 big blinds per 100 hands, and they're losing 10, right? So make sure you account for whatever expenses you occur that you would not otherwise occur. What percentage of your cash game sessions should be winners? Dan, why do you think that is not a good question? Because it's not a good question. Why do you think that is not a good question? Let me give you a second to think about it. What percentage of cash game sessions should be winners in live cash games? Why is that not a good question? Somebody want to type it in the chat? While you're down there, click the like button, click the subscribe button, click the notification bell. My job is to teach you all to think logically and think like a professional poker player. And if you think of questions that are not good questions, it probably presumes you're not thinking about the things that matter. Well, Diari says something that wasn't even my thought, because it's all one continuous session. Yeah, for sure, that's actually the case. One session bleeds into the next, it should not matter. However, what if your sessions only last 10 minutes? Well, it's going to be roughly 50-50, right? What if you think a session is 4 hours, but I think a session is 12 hours? I am obviously going to lose less often per session than you are, because I'm playing more hands and will extract more value over that time period. Therefore, I should be up far more often over 12 hours than you should over 4 hours. A session does not matter. Also, it depends on your win rate. If you're winning at 20 big blinds per 100 hands, you're going to be up far more often than someone who's winning at 3 big blinds per 100 hands. Okay? Also, being up or down per session really does not matter. Being up or down at any point in time really does not matter. It's all one long session. I realize that in tournaments it gets a little funny. I always try to think of tournaments in terms of how much money I'm extracting per event. I'm going to go there. I'm going to play my absolute best. I'm going to extract that amount of money per that event. And that's the end of it. Simple as that, right? So if I go play a Poker Go tournament like I'm going to do in a week, and let's say a $10,000 buy-in tournament, I expect to make 5 to 10% return on investment. That may not sound like a lot, but it's not so bad against the best players in the world. And I'm going to go there. I'm going to play on average, 4 hours. I'm probably going to invest $15,000 on average over 4 hours. And I'm going to make, let's say, $750 over 4 hours. So $200 per hour, give or take. Plus, they give you free food, and they charge you almost no rake, and it's a nice environment. It's a nice experience. It's actually fun. So, is that okay for me? It's fine for me, because it's also good for me if poker coaching coaches and I do well at poker, because then we get TV exposure, et cetera, and I'm happy to make $200 an hour doing that. But anyway, back to this. It's all one long session. Don't worry about being up or down or anything like that. It does not matter. So many poker players hate the idea of quitting down. That said, when should you quit a cash game session early? Say you go to the poker casino. You go to the casino. You plan to play 12 hours. When should you quit early? Your confidence goes goes out the window when you play live. Realize it's the same game in your head and get a lot of biological conditioning. Get in there and play and lose and win. And as you get more and more experience, you'll get better and better. Also realize that what other people think and what they do and all of that really doesn't matter all that much. Don't worry about what people say to you. Don't get nervous. Realize that you're the boss at the end of the day. Don't have these ego problems like we discussed. You moving up, but you have no data. What's a decent number of buy-ins to move up? Presume your win rate's about half of what it currently is at your current stake, and that's usually fine. All right, when should you quit a cash game session early? The answer is when you're losing. Because, like we discussed earlier, when you're losing, it presumes the game is tougher than normal. When you're winning, it presumes the game is softer than normal. So if the game is softer than normal and you're winning, why would you quit? Also, if you're losing and the game is tougher than normal, why would you play? Now, I realize sometimes the game's going to be tough and you haven't, it's just okay because you don't get to play that much or whatever. But if there ever is a time to quit, it's when the game is tougher than normal. You should quit when you're not playing your A game. I totally disagree. If your C game, your worst poker, is way better than your opponent's best poker, you should not quit. Back when I used to play 5-10 no limit all the time at Bellagio, my C game was a million times better than most of the other people's A game. So that would not really be a reason to quit. I would quit, however, if I ever lost $4,500, 3 $1,500 buy-ins. I would usually quit. Assuming I'm losing the money in rough-ish spots and I don't have a game that is very clearly soft. If I was losing because I got on with aces 3 times and lost a 9-7 offsuit, that's perfectly fine. I don't care about getting unlucky. You should not care about getting unlucky. Having a big bankroll hopefully will make you not care about inevitable swings. If you get your money in great and you lose, that's okay. If you instead are like bluffing it off in close spots and getting called by marginal stuff or value betting too thinly or you feel like you may be getting outplayed a little bit, those are the times to quit because you may be getting outplayed a little bit. Maybe your edge is not what you think it is. How many hours is a good sample? We discussed this earlier. I said something like 6 months of live poker playing a lot, 8 hours a day is probably a decent amount. The average person can make more in crypto than grinding poker. I don't know. Everyone's down bad over the course of yesterday. Enjoy yourselves. By the way, if you I'm not going to go into crypto. Check out Deck of Degeneracy. It's my NFT project. We still give away a lot of art. It's a lot of fun. All right, what about tournaments? This presumes you have a 30% return on investment, everyone. I just told you, Jonathan Little, okay poker player at least, thinks that in my games that have about 100 players, I think I only have about a 10% return on investment or a 5% return on investment. So that means I need way more than 100 buy-ins for the games that I'm playing. This presumes you have a 30% return on investment, which I think is very doable in small stakes games, which is what I presume a lot of you are playing. When you're growing your bankroll, maybe you're going to be roughly in this region. Typically, as there are more players in the tournament, your return on investment should go up. Why is that? Well, as your return on investment goes up, well, I'm sorry, what am I saying? As there are more players in the tournament, usually the players who get added are not all that good at poker. Because there's only so many good poker players in the world. Consider your local games, right? Imagine there's 50 good players where you live in your city. And they play the big monthly tournament that gets 500 people. That means 450 of those players are probably not all that good. Whereas if the tournament only has 100 players, probably 50 of them are not all that good. So which one's going to be softer? The one with 450 bad players or the one with 50 bad players? Obviously, the one with 50 bad players is going to be way tougher than the other one. That said, you're going to experience far more variance as there's more players in the tournament. So if you're playing like local 90-player tournaments or 45-player tournaments, you maybe need 100 buy-ins, give or take, if you have 30% return on investment. As you have a smaller return on investment, you're going to need more buy-ins. Okay? If you're playing gigantic field tournaments, like weekend tournaments on the biggest online poker sites, or big field live tournaments like World Series of Poker, or any casino that attracts a ton of players, you need a lot of buy-ins. And I can guarantee you, almost no one has this, and they wonder why they go on big downswings and why they eventually go broke. It's because they thought they needed 70 buy-ins for a game where they need 400 buy-ins. By the way, remember what I said up here? I recommend keeping more than the required bankroll amounts I'm about to show you. I recommend keeping more than this. Very, 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 very important. Your bankroll's $1,000 and you're playing 10 cent no limit, $10 buy-ins, okay? Is it realistic to get 100K by the end of 2025? No. You want 100x your money? No, it's not realistic. Do the math. Do the math. I'm going to do some quick math. I'm going to be very generous. Let's say you're making $4 per hour, $5 per hour. Let's say you're making $5 per hour currently. You need to turn your 1,000 into 2,000. So you need to make $1,000. $1,000 divided by 5 equals 200 hours. It's going to take you 200 hours to double your money. Okay? Let's just pretend all this stays consistent. This is you playing a bunch of tables at a time, making $5 per hour, which maybe you are, maybe you aren't. You probably aren't. It takes you 200 hours to double your money. You have to go 1 to 2. That's one double. 2 to 4. 4 to 8. 8 to 16. 16 to 32. 32 to 64. 64 to 128. 7 doubles. So it's going to take you 200 hours times 7 equals. Is that right? Assuming your win rate's very high, which it's not going to be. Let's double it one more time. 2,800 hours. Assuming everything goes perfectly. Divided by 35 hours per week. It's going to take you 80 weeks. Assuming your win rate's gigantic and everything goes perfectly. It'll take you 80 weeks. May go faster than you think, right? 80 is not all that many. As you see here, though, this assumes everything goes perfectly. I don't think you're winning $5 per hour either. You're probably winning like $1 per hour, something like that if you're a beginner. And there you go. Why would he not make 20 per hour? Because it's 10 cent no limit. You think he's going to make 200 big blinds per hour? I'm presuming 50. I'm presuming a lot. Oh yeah, he's not playing that many tables. What am I saying? So no, it's going to take him 2 or 3 times as much. 2 or 3 times as much as this. So more like 160 hours or 200 hours. I'm sorry, 160 weeks or 200 weeks. That said, though, if somebody told you, as someone with no money, and I'm going to presume no actual potential future things you could do, because maybe you're not going to college, maybe you don't have a job, maybe don't want to get a job, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If I told you you could turn effectively no money, $1,000, I realize 1,000 is not nothing, but it's not a lot, 1,000 into 100,000 over the course of 4 years, not even playing all that much poker, because honestly, if you're only putting 7 hours into poker a day, and it's really what you want to do, I think you're kind of lazy. And I may say you may not want to do it as much as you think you do. If I were you, instead of playing 1 5-hour session a day, I would play 2 5-hour sessions a day and study in the middle. And then maybe take 1 day off a week or something. Or, take some sessions off here and there. But if you double the number of sessions you play, you're going to get there twice as fast, right? Again, this presumes a bigger win rate than you have. This presumes you don't encounter any abnormally big downswings. But no, it's not. You're not going to do it in a year. Sorry. I mean, you could do it in a year if you take a lot of shots. Look, I mean, you could go make a 1 in 1,000 bet, or a 1 in 100 bet, whatever it is, and do it immediately. You guys see that video of this guy? It's like a crypto dude online playing on some online crypto site where basically you click a button, and if it lands, it's like roulette kind of. He's basically like clicking roulette, but you can click it as fast as you want. And he's betting on 50-50. And he just like loses. And he had like, I don't know, $5,000 in his account. And he lost it all in like a minute. And he was like, what just happened? So funny. I mean, it's funny because I've gone through it myself, It's only funny because I realize I understand the misery. Oh, it's funny. What if you got to school what if you have school so you can't put in that many hours? I mean, what then you move up slower. I mean, what do you mean? Back when I first started playing, I was working 2 jobs, 8 hours a day, and going to school. And there's still plenty of time. School's like what, 6 hours a day, give or take? Work is 8 hours a day, give or take. I tried to get jobs where I could have free time to study poker. Then that left, 2 or 3 hours a day to play poker. All my study time was done at work, and got to play 2 or 3 hours of poker a day. I think a lot of people waste a lot of time. A lot of people want to watch Netflix and chill every single day. I didn't watch any Netflix. I didn't even do a whole lot of chilling. I just played and studied poker all day, every day for years. There are still extreme talents in this game. I have no clue what you're referring to. I'm not a naturally talented poker player. I was weak and tight and bad when I started. I'm good at studying. I'm good at working. I'm a good worker. I'm good at putting my head down and grinding hard. Our satellite's a good idea. If you want to try to get rich quick, but usually lose all your money. You want to lose all your money? If you want to play satellites, I want you to ask yourself a different question. Do you want to lose all of your money almost every time? You want to lose all your money almost every time? Then satellites are for you. I personally don't want to lose all my money almost every time. Why do I say that? Because imagine you're trying to turn 100 into 1,000 into 10,000, which is to buy into a main event, a big main event, and then you got to win the main event with 1,000 players, 10,000 players. Let's say you're 1 in 8 to get through the first step. Then you're 1 in 8 to get through the second step. Then you're 1 in 8 to get through the third step. Let's just pretend. Because you have an edge. You're actually a good satellite player. 1 divided by 8 equals this. Times 0.125 times 0.125 equals. You are 0.2% to get into the main event. 0.2%. Is that right? Sounds pretty bad. That can't be right. Maybe you're 1.2%. Maybe you're 2%. Whatever it is. Let's presume you're 2% to get a 1 in 100. Oh, I'm trying to get a 1 in 1,000. That's what it is. Yeah, you're 1 in 1,000. So you're actually 1 in 500 to get through to the main event because you have a big edge in satellites. So you're actually 1 in 500 to do a 10,000x or do 1,000x. 100. I did it too many times. Yeah, that's $10 into 10,000. I don't know what a step 3 is. This is $10 into 10,000. Otherwise, it'd be whatever it is. 1 in, say you're 1 in 80 to get in the main event. So you're already 1 in 80. So that means 79 times you're going to lose. And that's just to get into the main event. The big problem a lot of satellite players have, by the way, I say you want to play with satellite players. Where do I say this? Right here. You want to play with satellite players because satellite players are good at minimum cashing. They're not good at winning. If you spend all your time playing satellites, you're going to be probably pretty good at satellites. And then you're going to suck at main events. And the problem is when you're used to playing $10 buy-in satellites, or even $100 buy-in satellites, and you're good at that structure, and that's all you do, and then 1 in 500 times, or 1 in 80 times, or whatever the number is, depending on where you started, you go and you play a main event for $10,000, either 100 or 1,000 times what you're used to playing, you're probably going to be a little outmatched. Because if you're a $10 player and you're playing against $10,000 players, that's not good for you. That's really, 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 really bad. I love playing against players who are playing for 100 times what they're used to. So no, don't play satellites. You gotta have discipline, everyone. If you play out of your bankroll consistently in games you cannot beat, you will not win at poker. Simple as that. There is no rush to get rich quick. Everyone wants to get rich quick, but I'm telling you, you need to develop skills to be able to win at poker. And once you develop those skills to win at poker, the money will flow your direction. The problem is everyone wants to play. They like to play the game. They don't like to study the game. They want to play. Play, play, play. Playing without an edge is how you lose. That said, as you get used to studying more and doing the right thing more often, meaning being disciplined, quitting when the game's bad, or moving down when your bankroll is short, or skipping events because the game's not good, as you get used to making disciplined decisions, doing the right thing, it'll become routine. It'll become normal for you. I mean, look, in the Poker Go studio, I go there and I'll buy in on time, because usually the game's relatively soft when you buy in on time. But say I bust right before the end of the re-entry period. Maybe if you re-enter, you'll have like a $200 win rate or something, like not a lot, but a little. But if all the good players have the chips, meaning there's no bad players left in the tournament, I don't re-enter. Why? Because I don't think I'm going to make much money. Now, if all the bad players have chips, then I'm definitely going to re-enter, because there should be a decent edge there, right? I presume I'm better than the bad players. But if all the good players have chips in a tournament near the end of the re-entry period, you're going to make almost no money re-entering, in my opinion. At least I don't think I am. I don't think I have a huge edge over the best players in the world. Sorry, right? So I just won't re-enter. I could re-enter, but I don't. I just go home. And it's not hard for me to do. It's easy for me to do, because I've done the right thing over and over and over again for many years, to the point that I think that is the right play, and I'm happy to do it, because I'm trying to make money at the end of the day. And you need to get good at doing the right thing too. And if you get good at doing the right thing over and over and over again, it's going to work out for you. Should we take shots? If there's a game that's a little bit too big for you, but it's very soft, it's probably fine to play. Because if the game is very soft, your edge will be doubled or more. If your edge is doubled or more, then you can probably need about half the bankroll you would naturally need. Therefore, you should be fine. That said, again, you have to be disciplined. And if your shots fail, you have to move down. You got to move down. Also, in tournaments, keep track of your average buy-in in general. You may find that you're taking shots a little bit too much, to the point that you need a much bigger bankroll than you think. And that's important to consider too. That said, this is very important. Be disciplined and move downs if your shots fail. It is okay to move down. Be okay with moving down, etc., etc., etc. What masterclass should you buy? You don't have to buy a masterclass. Just go to pokercoaching.com. Everything is included in Poker Coaching Premium. If you're playing cash games, check out the Cash Game Masterclass. You want to seat to a bigger tournament? You can get to learn more lessons and get to practice against better players. Again, there's this idea of, I want to play to get experience against better players. You can play against the GTO bot who plays better than any poker player. And that's very cheap to do at peak GTO. You don't need to go buy in for a ton of money to get to play against better players. I realize it's not exactly the same, but every single day I train against players, or the bot, which is way better than my opponents. And I get to do that for very, very cheap every single day. And I get a lot of experience like that. Because, I'm not in Vegas right now. I'm not playing poker today or for the next week. But I'm going to train on that trainer a lot. I'm going to get to study specific spots. And I can really, really drill down very exact scenarios. And I realize that it may be intimidating or daunting to play against players who are quote unquote better than you. But if you studied a lot and you just know what the right play is in a lot of spots, you'll be fine. That's it for today. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Good luck in your games. Have fun. I wish you the absolute best in 2025. Please be disciplined. Please make good decisions. Find a game you can beat. Keep a proper bankroll. And play the game a lot. Got them backwards. Ha. And the money will flow in your direction. If you don't do these 3 things, the money's probably not going to flow in your direction. It might, but it probably won't. You have trouble quitting when you're ahead. I think it's probably reasonable to quit at some set amount of time or some set amount of hours played, assuming you're going to get to play a lot. If you're not going to get to play a lot, you want to play when the game is soft. But if you were like me every day playing at Bellagio, literally 7 days a week, it's okay to quit early here and there. But if you only get to play 2 times per month or something like that, yeah, you probably don't want to quit early if you're up. That said, quitting when you're up is, again, like we discussed, not when you really want to quit. Now, that doesn't mean you should play until you're down. But at some point, you're going to get tired. At some point, you're not going to want to play anymore. So what I would do is I would play from noon until midnight back in the day. And I would usually quit around midnight. Not the ideal hours, I know, but I wanted to be awake during the day. I would rather give up a little bit of money in exchange for being awake during the day, unless the game is super duper soft, then I would go play super late. But find a schedule. And if you have a schedule where you know you're going to play 8 hours or 10 hours or whatever, and then after that you're done, you're just going to pack it up. I think that's a pretty good way to go about it, to be sure you don't get super burnt out and to assume you're not playing like overly tired. You're playing $10 average buy and you built up $4,500. You've lost down to $1,500. Wait, what? What should you play live or online? I mean, $10 buying games are probably fine if there's not such big a field. But how about low buy-in satellites? Are satellites bad in general? I literally just told you why satellites are bad. When you win a satellite, you have to play a bigger game that you're not bankrolled for against players who are better than you at a structure you're not used to. It's literally a spot where it is almost impossible to win. Now, look, somebody will win. And you're going to think, oh, that could be me. You don't realize, though, for every Chris Moneymaker out there, there's probably 8,000 losers. No, way more than 8,000 losers. There's probably 80,000 losers. And yeah, it could be you. Probably won't be, though. Which poker coaching coach do I recommend for a one-on-one session? Depends on what you're playing. Send an email to support@pokercoaching.com. Give us a little bit of info, and we'll send you in the right direction. I have to go now. Good luck. Have fun. Make good decisions. Please. Click the like and subscribe button before you leave. Click the notification bell. I'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.